Let's call this meeting to order. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Director Hetherington.
Here.
Director Diamond.
Here.
Director Odette. Here. Director Rolfe. Here. Director Stevens.
Here. Any special orders of business? Not hearing any. I would like to report that our closed session was held before this meeting and we have nothing to report out. Modification of agenda. Board President reserved the right to modify the agenda in the most effective way to operate this agenda. May be taken out of order, etc. Does anybody want to make any changes to the agenda? Okay. Sorry, I'm calling up my speaker piece. I thought I had it printed out, but I don't. You gonna bring it up for me?
There. Very close here. 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 It's easy.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, speak your piece. Pay attention, be aware, and attend to the world and the people around you. Listen, focus on others in order to better understand their points of view. Be inclusive, welcome all groups of citizens working for the better of the good of the community. Don't gossip. Don't accept when others choose to do so. Show respect. Honor the other people and their opinions, especially in the midst of disagreement. Be agreeable. Look for opportunities to agree. Don't contradict just to do so. Apologize. Be sincere and repair damaged relationships. Give constructive criticism when disagreeing. Stick to the issues and do not make a personal attack. Take responsibility. Don't shift responsibility and blame onto others. Share disagreements publicly. Okay. Now's the time for public comment for anything that is not on the agenda. And the time allotted to each speaker is determined by the board president. However, the comments will generally be limited to 3 minutes. Written comments may be submitted to comments@TruckeeTahoe.com. And there's a time limit of, you got to get it in before it actually makes the agenda. So now's the time for public comment.
Hello, everybody. Rick Bentley, 650-450-4241. Rick@thebentleys.com. I encourage anyone to reach out to me who would like to. I sent this in to Rick and Kat and the GM as a PDF. I'll make sure it's included next time in time. I spent most of my day today repositioning my plane over to Carson City before the storm so it doesn't get destroyed in the weather. Not the best time to go flying. Didn't have much choice. Here's a picture of my plane with frost on it on the ramp here for lack of hangar space. If I take off like that, I'm dead, so are my passengers, plus anyone I hit on the ground. I'm just going to paraphrase from what I sent in. I understand that you guys like the airport, guys and gals like the airport for what you can take out of it, but the aviators here, the people who have lived here for a long time and bought planes, etc., we're here because there's an airport here. And the economy is here because there's an airport here. And you may not like the airport, but it's here. You can go 100 miles north or south, hundreds of miles north and south, find a mountain town with cheap housing and no airport, and not much of an economy either. This place really depends on the airport, and just really unfortunate on the third year of a hangar wait list, and no one's had the the idea that, hey, maybe we should build some more hangars, or maybe we should price them to market. Most of them are empty. Boats in them all winter. Some of them get used 2 weeks a year, right? I live here. I moved here because I worked hard. I moved here because there's an airport here, and it's effectively close to the Bay Area, the tech center where I work. And I'm not alone, and there's a lot of us who are really fed up, and I think things will be very different this year. You can read what I sent to Rick and Kat. I'm sure they'll get forwarded. But the peasants are revolting.
Thank you, Mr. Bentley. Any other public comment?
Well, I just got inspired by that. Hey, everybody. Nick Pappas. I'm a Truckee resident, voter, electorate. I guess I just wanted to make sure that us peasants without airplanes have a voice too. When I heard that the peasants are revolting, it made me think of the tens of thousands of people in the airport district who are us peasants who don't own planes, us peasants who are paying into the tax base, us peasants who are voting to elect the board. And I just want to make sure that there is a recognition that there is a very interested group of peasants who really support the community benefits that are mentioned in Mr. Bentley's letter as I believe it was a misuse of public funds and perhaps a breach of fiduciary duty. So I just want to acknowledge that there are perhaps multiple competing groups of peasants. There are the peasants with private planes, and there are the peasants who are the rest of us. So just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Bruce Durham, and I've been living here in Truckee for about 6 months. I've helped Mr. Bentley move his plane multiple times to Carson City because of weather. I know what kind of hassle that he's had to put up with living here in Truckee and not being able to park his plane here. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment?
Hi, my name's Brooke Hess. I'm a resident of Truckee. I'm a journalist for the Associated Press. I would like to second Nick's comment. I am among the peasants of Truckee. I work here. I do service in the community. I also work in river conservation in the community. I can't afford to ride in a private jet. I probably never will, but my tax money is going to these private jets rather than to schools, rather than to wildfire mitigation, rather than to local lower income housing. And I think those things are more pressing issues for Truckee these days rather than a private jet when the people who fly the private jets can afford to build their own hangar. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Well, we will close the public comment period and move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody want to pull any of the consent agenda items?
No.
Well, then may I have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any public comment? We have a motion and a second. Do we have to do a roll call? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, the next item is the LAFCO selection, special district representatives on the agenda. And we have two decisions to make. And given the fact that I am on LAFCO, I would like to give you my recommendation. The first is selection of a regular voting special district representative LAFCO, and I recommend that this district vote for Joshua Alpine, who is currently on LAFCO and has been president of the LAFCO board, and I believe that he will be solidly reelected. So I would recommend that we vote on the first agenda item is Joshua Alpine. The second vote is the alternate special district representative to LAFCO. And I recommend that we vote for Judy Friedman as an alternate, and then as a second, Joshua Alpine again. And I'd like to comment is When I first got on LAFCO, I went in as an alternate, and a year later, I was elected to a permanent position where I am now. And so, given that I'm on LAFCO, I would like to make a motion that on the first issue, we vote for Joshua Alpine, and the second one, we vote for Judy Friedman and Joshua Alpine. That is my motion on LAFCO.
Second.
Any discussion?
I don't know Joshua Alpine, but I'm going to trust your judgment because you've been on LAFCO. And I think Judy Friedman is amazing.
Yes, she is. Any public comment? We have a motion and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Board of Directors Insurance Revision. How are we going to handle this?
Thanks, President Stevens. I'd be happy to give a very brief staff report, or if you'd like to just get
No,
a discussion.
I
of it
would
further.
like you to, if you would, please.
Sure. Under the law, there are really two ways that special districts can provide health and related benefits to the board of directors. The first are through some government code provisions, which are labeled the group insurance statutes in the staff report. I'll try to use that just for clarity. And then the second is through a program which is known by its acronym of PEMCA, which is actually operated through CalPERS. Historically, we've utilized the group insurance statutes to operate our reimbursement program, where directors are reimbursed for their insurance premiums. Based on some relatively recent changes in the law and policy related to these issues, and in particular interpretations of the group insurance statutes, staff does not recommend continuing the current practice, and that we look at alternative ways of providing health insurance benefit coverage to directors. And we've identified two options. And those options are non-exclusive. So we could do one, we could do two, or we could do them both. So the first would be to transition from the way we're currently doing it to obtain actual coverage through PEMCA. So we could contract with CalPERS to provide health insurance directly through them for directors. We have confirmed that they are able to provide that. We would need to adopt a resolution and take some additional action to opt into that program, but it's not something where we'd have to wait for a year or that sort of thing. It's more like a 60 days, 90 days process to be enrolled. The anticipated monthly costs per director, there are two different plans, so it depends on the plan. It also depends on the number of dependents. But the quotes that we received were approximately $900 per participating director to up to $3,500, again, depending on the plan and number of dependents. And this coverage, health coverage, would be substantially similar to the coverage that's provided to airport district employees. However, PERS does not provide a supplemental Medicare plan. They only provide that to folks who are actually PERS retirees. So directors, unless you were a PERS retiree from your private life, would be ineligible for a plan in that case. In addition, PEMCA does not include a dental or vision coverage option. The other option would be to recognize that if we were no longer able to provide reimbursement for private health coverage, there is a net financial impact to directors. And one way to potentially mitigate that net financial impact would be to increase the stipend that you receive. So under the airport district law, you each receive a $100 per meeting stipend for your service towards the district. There's another provision of the law which allows any special district to increase its stipend by amount equal to 5% per year since the last adjustment, and that 5% per year is not compounded, it's simple. So it's really 5% times the number of years. Based on our review of our records and consistent with the airport district law, we've never increase the stipend from the statutory amount of $100, so we could go up, given the number of years, to $320 per meeting. This wouldn't necessarily and wouldn't make directors whole, but would help mitigate some of the financial impact. So that's really what we're looking for direction is are you interested in option one, option two, or potentially both? This is agendized as an action item, but we are just looking for direction. Both option one and option two would require further official action by the board, which will be brought forth as soon as potentially your April board meeting. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
I have a question. The option two, that would be, instead of the 100, it'd be the,
That's correct. So the
320.
stipend.
It wouldn't be the 100 plus 320.
That's correct. I apologize. I misspoke. It would be an increase at $100 per meeting to $320 per meeting.
Thank you. That's clear.
I would, looking at your 12B or 12, your attachment, sitting on a board does take a fair amount of work. I absolutely believe that health insurance should be covered by board members. I'm on Medicare, so I don't get it. So I also put in quite amount of time, and I think since $100 has been in place since 1958, I think $320 per meeting is a fair, so to me, I think it's a both.
I don't like the optics of a 300% increase in our compensation, because that's how it's going to read. It's not going to be 100 to 300. And so I would prefer option number one exclusively.
I agree with the optics comment. However, I think it's been, Tom Meadows was getting $100 back in the last century. When he was, and I don't think it's unreasonable to increase it, but I do think that's a big increase percentage-wise. And maybe it's something that the board just looks at every 5 years and says, what's reasonable? Should we raise it another $50 or whatever? It's certainly it's more in line with, for instance, what the town gets per month, the hospital. But I think that option number one makes a lot of sense.
I would offer that I saw that North Tahoe PUD just had, or was it North Tahoe Fire? They just had a public meeting, and it was if you chose to take the medical, then you got $20 per meeting. If you weren't taking the medical, then you've got, it was $300 or something. So we could set it up that way. So, because it does not seem fair for the two Medicare people to get $100. Because I'm not a CalPERS retiree.
Yeah, but I don't think we should be making this decision based on the 5 individual situations. I think we're making a decision for future boards. And future boards can decide, we do need to have some kind of carrot to be on boards. I know, like even now, we're having trouble finding people to run for all the seats that are going to be open next fall. So I agree there should be a carrot, but I don't think we should be putting ourselves, I think this is a public decision and not a personal decision.
Well, Josh, since you do North Tahoe, can you address what they came up with?
Yeah, and I represent North Tahoe PUD, which has a different approach. They provide coverage to directors directly.
So what did I see? Maybe it was North Tahoe Fire then?
And I apologize, I'm not familiar with North Tahoe Fire.
Because it was just a public thing on
When
the
I was
agenda.
on North Tahoe's board, it was health insurance.
Yeah.
There was no per meeting stipend at all.
So North Tahoe Fire gets CalPERS, they get full health insurance plus $279.77 per meeting. Donner Summit, they get health insurance and $300 per meeting. North Tahoe PUD gets medical, dental, vision, and $400 per month. Olympic Valley gets nothing, $600 per month for meeting, up to $6,000 per year reimbursement for medical expenses. Tahoe City PUD gets CalPERS plus $400 a month stipend. Tahoe Forest gets medical, dental, vision, $100 per meeting, up to $500 per month. Town of Truckee, no medical, and I know they're going to be revisiting that, plus $851 per month. Truckee Donner PUD gets medical, dental, vision, prescription, and $400 per month. Truckee Donner PUD gets use of facilities, no medical, dental, they get $100 per meeting. Truckee Fire District gets life and ADD disability insurance and $100 per meeting with 4 meetings per month. Truckee Sanitary gets medical, dental, vision, deferred compensation, and $280 a meeting. And us, we are pending. So every other one has compensation in the $300 to $400 per month, plus medical. So if we're having a hard time finding people, it makes, to me, it's not, I think, I would like to see both. Or a smaller amount for the people who are getting medical per the meeting. They could stay at $100 plus get medical. But for people who are not not CalPERS retirees, they should be able to get the higher level of compensation.
Yes, so the 320 is a cap. We could set up a tiered structure if that was the board's direction.
David?
Do we have any estimate based on where we are currently versus if we go option A on this? What's the difference, the net financial difference to the district in where we're headed with option A versus where we are now?
I need to phone a friend. Lauren, do you have a ballpark on that? What we spend currently versus what, or Kelly? Yeah.
Shouldn't it not be different because we've been getting reimbursed? And now
That's what I want to, I just kind of want to know
My
that
understanding,
before.
and Kelly can correct me here in a second, is that the PEMCA program is slightly more expensive than what reimbursement has been, just from the premiums they quoted us.
Have you finished, David?
I was waiting on Kelly.
Oh,
So yes, I
Okay,
just pulled up
okay.
the North Tahoe because it was actually in the Sierra Sun to discuss compensation. They get $290.61, and if a director, that's for the meeting. If they don't take health insurance, if they take the health insurance, they get $20 per day for the day's attendance at the meeting.
Can I just finish? My
Well, I didn't know you had one.
Given that if the difference between where we've been and where we go with option one is negligible, I wouldn't be opposed to the concept of if you are accepting option one, then you don't increase your stipend, and if you're not accepting anything, you increase the stipend. The stipend's been the same since 1958. This was a great board to be on in 1958 as
Yeah.
terms of, as compensation for that. I'm also concerned about the optics on that, on the over 300% increase on that. I think it's more palatable if that director is not also taking from the insurance pool. That would
I mean,
be
if we
my
can have two options, I'm open to having zero stipend. I mean, it doesn't make a difference.
Well, I think the one thing I do think about, which has been touched on, is that, and Kat mentioned this also. As difficult as it is now to get good people to run for these offices, it's exponentially more difficult to get younger people interested because they are working full time and they have to do these different things. So if they're absorbed with work and all that, they might not have that opportunity to do that. So I do feel like not just for our district, for all districts, the inclusion of healthcare is a little bit of a carrot that maybe we could encourage others to step forward for this. So I definitely would want to support option one. To me, the question is just on option two. Supporting option one and supporting option two just feels like we have increased our stipend 300%, which concerns me. But I feel like if that director is not taking the health care coverage and then they want to do that, I think that's great. And if they're taking the health coverage, that they, whether it's 0 or the 100, I think that's fair, because then it seems like kind of a net, it net the same basically for the district. So I don't think it doesn't, at that point in time, it doesn't seem like that big a deal.
David, I have the answer for your question. 2023.
Microphone.
2023, we spent 90,500, and for 24, we have budgeted 99,900. So
You hear her?
90,000 last year, 99 this year.
Okay, thanks.
And the 99 is assuming that option 1, the new,
no.
that's
99 is just what we budgeted based
oh,
on
I
the.
see, okay, but we don't have.
90,000 for this year is what's budgeted for director insurance compensation, plus the meeting stipend also. That's just for insurance.
That's just insurance.
So that it averages, I want to say, around $2,500 a month per director is what we're currently paying to get to that close to $100,000 price tag. So at the high end, option 1 here is about $1,000 per director per month more at the high end, depending what kind of coverage you select. So that could be around $60,000 more if at the high end than existing. So instead of 100,000, it could be up to 160,000 at the high end.
Wow, okay.
Does that sound?
See, my feeling is option 1 is much more expensive for the airport itself. I look at, and I'm just going to do it personally because I know the numbers. I get about $2,000 a month reimbursement for medical, plus $100 for the meeting, and I don't care what we do because my life on this board is limited till next December. I believe it's December 4th, 2024. And I don't think increasing the stipend from 100 to 320, I look at it that I won't take the medical if you do one. And so I'll go from whatever this is to 100. But decide what you want to do. I think the option 1 is going to cost this board more money.
Well, this particular board, it won't cost more money because 2 board members aren't eligible for reimbursement under option 1. So it would just be the 3 of us if we chose to do that. And 1 director's never taken it.
Right.
So, but we want to look at the big picture and look down the line. And as David said, it's hard to get younger people to run for these offices, and it's important to do that.
So what do we need to do?
Make a decision. Or make a recommendation. Or think about it till next April.
We also need public comment at some point whenever you'd like.
Is there any public comment?
Good afternoon. My name is Sven Pohl. I think we've all met before. I do have a recommendation based on the fact that there's a kind of clear conflict of interest here. Perhaps you could assign staff to develop the data for the comparison of all the other public boards that exist in the broader area. You've cited many of them, Mary, already. And then elect or choose 3 independent people to come back with a recommendation, because you all have that potential conflict of interest in front of you. And you can then decide whether or not to accept what that group of 3 or 5 or whoever it may be would recommend. But at least it gives you the arm's length view of what non-interested parties might recommend. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sen. Any other public comment?
I like the bifurcated. I think that that's a middle space. So I would make a motion, or there's no motion because it's not an action. I would ask.
There can be a motion if you'd like to give clear a direction between options 1 or 2. It's just they're not they're not self-executing. We'll have to bring back official documents to implement them, but it gives us the direction we're looking for.
Or the direction then to staff is that there's the split. If you're not taking medical insurance, you get the $320, and if you are going to take the medical insurance, you stay at the $100.
$5.
$5?
$5. I mean, if we have to give something per meeting.
Is there a law that you have to, that we have to take?
No, directors always have the option of declining their stipend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then I'd say 0 if you're taking health insurance.
That's 0 increase or $0?
0.
Okay.
I like Sven's idea. I think it would be helpful to see numbers.
It is all here. It's in the agenda.
Yeah, so we
Well, not exactly. I mean, I'd like to see, I pay next to nothing for my covered California. If it's going to cost $3,000 through CalPERS, I'm not going to, I'd like for everybody to see what that looks like. Can we assign numbers to each director in their current situation?
Well, I think it,
Based off of your demographic of your household, that has historically been very difficult for staff to do. It's been very difficult for staff to provide a cost estimate based off of your personal demographic of your household, because there's a lot of varying factors of what goes into that premium amount, more than just your age and household number.
and it's very specific to this board. Meaning, it's pretty standard to have health insurance on a publicly elected board.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't, I don't know. We can opt not to take it, but to ask staff to tell us what it's going to cost for these 5 people, I think is way too personal. At a high level, it's kind of the standard, the health insurance,
According to this.
right? Am I right, Josh? I mean, this is your world.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why we did include, to the public comment in the packet at tab 11A is a summary of what all the, agencies around are providing. It doesn't have, dollars associated with the health insurance amounts for the reasons we just talked about. But I think it's absolutely fair to say, in looking at the chart, that the vast majority of agencies in the area provide health insurance to directors.
Yeah, well, I mean, Mary's idea is fine, but I don't know. Not trying to discount a $100 bill, but it's not material to me. So I'd say 0. And you can leave it at $100 and I can just decline it, right? Yeah. Yes. Okay.
I hate to admit this, but when I was elected in 2016, I didn't know we got health insurance.
I didn't either.
Me either.
I had no idea.
Nor did I. But what door you're opening goes to what you're talking about in terms of if we're trying to get more young people involved in the politics in this region, there's a lot of boards. There's 17 boards, right? If someone has a choice to work for one that has health insurance and one that doesn't, who are you left to choose from? As we had our previous person, do you have to be if you're a peasant, to use that term, are you going to choose to be representative of a large portion of our community on this board, or are you going to find one that has health insurance? Those are real things.
Yeah.
I support Mary's option.
And I think that you have to come back with a resolution
Yeah.
month,
Yeah.
but I would like to see it go that way of, if you take health insurance, keep it at the $100, you can decline it. If you're not if you're not taking the insurance, you get $320, and next year it'll be $330.
$325.
$325 or something.
Fine with me.
If there's consensus, the staff doesn't need a motion. Yeah.
Okay.
But we need a resolution for it to be impact, to have it
That's right. So the
implemented.
next step, based on the direction we think we've heard, is we'll come back with options 1 and 2, with the idea being that option, the stipend adjustment will only apply to directors who don't receive insurance coverage. And that'll be an ordinance for the adjustment to the stipend and a resolution, probably a couple resolutions to enroll in the PEMCA program. So more information to come. Thank you.
Enough direction, everybody?
Yep.
Thank you. Discussion items and board ad hoc committee reports. We're talking about Community Benefit Wildfire Mitigation Agency Partnership.
Good evening, Board. Rob Etnier, General Manager. I'll be leading this staff discussion for the Board of Directors. This is a discussion item, and there will be public comment opportunity as we go through this.
Let's be fired.
I've passed out some maps that were not part of the previous package, and there's some extra ones for the audience as well, and I'll talk about those a little further in the discussion. We do have some representatives from the Community Foundation, I believe, are online if we do have questions about that. And we have two fire chiefs with us here, both Chief McKechnie and Chief Smith, to address questions as well specific to this topic. Thank you all for being here. The background paper that you have is a little bit of background. I'll just cover this briefly and get to the discussion topics. The airport district has had a long relationship with the airport district community here of utilizing airport tax revenue in a variety of capacities to benefit the airport district. We have gone through a process with what we call our policy instruction 311 here, which is our community benefit policy, to really make it very clear from a legal perspective the use of those tax revenue dollars in the community, not on the airfield, being related to the purpose of an airport. And that's an important distinction as we talk about the potential use of airport revenue funds, tax revenue funds back in the community, the airport district, around a potential wildfire mitigation type projects. Based on our council's past feedback, these type of projects around wildfire mitigation do qualify for the definition of the proper use of tax funds as related to the purpose of the airport and why those funds were collected across the airport district. So I want to make sure we do address that as something up front, that's what we're talking about is an appropriate use of funds from a legal perspective. And then it really gets to a matter of a board decision from a political perspective, working with the best interest of the community in mind of how we use funds here. The other points that are in here as background is that the airport district board in our current budget cycle that we're in, the approved budget for 2024 did include a $2 million earmark for the concept of wildfire mitigation. The board did approve that as part of the budget package, with the caveat that staff do a little research and come back and we hold this type of discussion to further refine how these funds might be utilized or not during this fiscal year. So that's why we're here today, to discuss that. I've had the opportunity to have several meetings now, both with members of the Community Foundation, member of our fire district, both CAL FIRE and the 4 different fire districts within the airport district boundaries, along with a number of other experts, I would call them, in this space to talk about, where we should, if we were to deploy money around wildfire mitigation, where does it make sense to move that money towards? What's the best process from a public process perspective to identify priority projects, identify a process of vetting those projects and bringing those back to the board of directors, and having the board of directors review those? And is there opportunities to leverage other money that might be possible along this journey to deploy within the community to address wildfire mitigation? The 2 background papers and articles that are in here really get to the point of, for those that haven't read a lot or aren't as familiar with, is there a problem of wildfire in this area? Why are we focused on this? Why is this a subject at all? If you haven't lived in this community for a while, this was really just meant of both from a high level, perspective of looking at wildfires across this region. Both the PowerPoint presentations in there talks about evacuation routes, about the impacts of fire to communities, and also from a technical perspective, if you're actually going to manage forest on a regular proactive basis to mitigate wildfires, what's the best practices around that? Is it a one-time thing you're done, or is it really a recurring cycle of 5 to 7 years? You got to keep treating the forest constantly. You're never really done. And I think that's what the articles I've included in there as background information to give you a little picture of what our fire chiefs live on a regular basis and know first and foremost to be responsible to this district about responsible management across their jurisdictions. The map that you have here on the board is the historical Caltopo map of the fires that have occurred, the large fires, not just structural fires, that have occurred across the landscape here. The yellow boundaries that you see here north of Lake Tahoe is the airport district boundaries. The individual colored octagons or polygons that you see there have a date associated with them, and those are the dates of past large historic fires that have taken place around this area. The other map that I handed out that we don't have on the board here today is actually from the Truckee Fire District's Community Wildfire Protection Plan that is almost at its conclusion at this point. I sat through a great briefing yesterday by Dylan with the Truckee Fire District, who walked through the current status for those that have not been involved in the wildfire planning that's going on here for the Truckee Fire District. It's really, it's the handout one, it looks more red in color on the map, and it really identifies the threat areas of potential wildfire around the jurisdiction of the Truckee Fire District here. Each fire district across the four that operate within the jurisdictional boundaries of the airport district all have their own community wildfire protection plans. They have similar mapping to the one that you have here in front of you. So it really, begins to paint the picture that there's a significant wildfire threat in this area. There's an opportunity here for the airport to help fund the mitigation of wildfires. And really what I'm looking to seek guidance on for the board for this particular fiscal year is what is the best process for us, and is there consensus on the board to move forward with that process that we can bring back to the board on either a regular basis or a one-time basis, a list of projects that would meet a certain criteria for the board to review and to authorize the expenditure of funds to address priority projects across the airport districts, across specifically CAL FIRE and the four fire districts within our boundaries. And so I'll stop at that point with just a little bit of background and prep for the discussion to get the board's questions on, and I'm happy to talk more about potential processes to deploy these resources if there's support to move forward on this.
I have a quick question. This shows for Truckee Fire. Is there something similar that shows North Tahoe Fire?
For each fire district, that comes out of the Community Wildfire Protection Plan for the Truckee Fire District. Each of the four fire districts that operate within our jurisdiction, and CAL FIRE as well, all have their own similar maps.
Truckee's map.
That's just the most recent one that's been on the street, and that's why I pulled that one down today.
Just for future reference, I mean, I'm supportive of this idea, but for me to get the whole picture, can we also get this for the North Tahoe?
Yes, I could pull together and certainly would recommend that as part of a process to be able to show the board for each of the five, if you count CAL FIRE, jurisdictional authorities in California, not counting federal, state land or federal lands. Each of them has a similar map and can show through a very deliberate public process how they individually have prioritized within their jurisdictions their own priorities to address their wildfire prevention plans. Yes. And I'm happy to ask if they're willing, Chief McKechnie or Chief Smith, to talk about the need for additional funding around wildfire mitigation compared to the list of projects for mitigation. I'm happy if the folks from the Community Foundation are online to talk about their experience with the Forest Futures and processes to address things that they've been tackling at the same time these last few years. Chief McKechnie, thank you.
My name is Kevin McKechnie, Fire Chief, Truckee Fire Protection District. Good afternoon. Yeah, so one of my messages is that fire prevention is everybody's responsibility. The fire district, we're responsible for fire suppression, but everybody needs to be engaged in fire prevention. I think this is really the case in the built environment. But we need to continue that in the wildfire environment. As a community, Measure T has provided this great opportunity to generate this engagement in wildfire prevention for our community, but more needs to be done. So in this current plan that Rob brought up, our current wildfire prevention or protection plan, we've identified 10,000 acres of priority projects in that WUI threat and defense zone. So 10,000 acres, that's like 13% of the land in the fire district, I believe. That's in need of sort of priority treatments. And if we look at the going rate is about $5,000 per acre. And so that's $50 million, right? So can seem insurmountable, but it's really important that we begin moving in that direction. I would say implementing any of these high priority projects would make a difference between a catastrophic fire and a common fire, an ordinary fire. We're going to have these ordinary fires. They're going to happen all the time, but the question is how big, how catastrophic will they be before the firefighters can get there? And so these forest fuels work, these fuel mitigation efforts, they all make it better. They create a space for firefighters to work. It's a space where we can attack the fire. They create space and time for evacuations, and they just reduce that probability of catastrophic wildfire. So I think it's money well spent. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions.
How do you, there's so much, 50 million, we don't have that much.
Right.
How do you start?
We've already started.
With Prop T money?
Well, even before that. And so we did this Glenshire to Brockway fuel break in partnership with CAL FIRE, Truckee Fire, the airport. And so we're already doing the work. More needs to be done. We have a lot of good projects out there. But we need to keep going. We need to build the forest economy back, which is, how to manage these forest products.
Does that mean actually cutting logs and things like that?
Absolutely.
And when you say the airport, are you talking Wattle Ranch? Because we've done a lot of work in there.
Yes, that's part of the Glenshire to Brockway fuel break. Yeah.
I'm curious in terms of, speaking in specific neighborhoods. I mean, the Forest Service did a big thinning, that covers a big area. I'm thinking about neighbors who have very much overgrown their parcel, some who can afford to take down trees, some who can't. And you're still developing how this would even be implemented, but is this geared towards, like Nevada County is doing stuff for 3 acres and above? I'm thinking about the quarter-acre parcels that start the fire that then takes out a neighborhood. And how do we get money into that quarter acre? At one point I talked in my neighborhood, there were 600 homes, everybody puts $1,000 in, and we get a local haul tree kind of thing to come in. We look for grants to tie it, and they come in and say, what's the best way to do this? Is that part of the thinking? I mean, I'm thinking neighborhoods.
Yeah, no, and so we chip away at that continuously with our defensible space program, green waste pickup. And so the fire district's done like 5,000 defensible space inspections.
Put that a little closer to having a hard time hearing.
Sorry.
Inspections are like, you should do this, but there's nothing that says they have to do this, or that there's help for them to do this, because some people just can't swing it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we're working on programs to help facilitate that residential defensible space. Yeah. Is that where this money could go, should go? Like I say, we have multiple programs through Measure T, residential defensible space, through community grant programs, through CWPP implementation work, that all is looking for funding.
But it's conceivable that some of this money could go towards that, correct?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Ultimately, it's going where we decide it goes.
Right, right.
You know, I think some of the concern is the documentation of that and the process, and I think there is maybe more challenging process related to the individual donation to that quarter-acre parcel, and maybe the small efforts. We do run into having to, I guess, give 1099s out for some of that grant money, which can be challenging. So I don't know that this grant from the airport would be geared towards that, but know that those programs are in the works through Nevada County Fire Safe Council.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna talk.
Oh, I was just turning on my mic.
Sorry, I'm just waiting for the cues, but can we go back to that map for just the yellow map for a second? To me, when I think of this from this perspective, that yellow map, what makes this region so unique and so difficult is that we have two layers of authoritative government over that, the state of California and the federal government. Other than that, it's us. It's the school district, it's the airport district, and it's the hospital district are the only government agencies that touch all of those areas. Because of that, I do feel like we have a unique responsibility and we have a unique capability to do something about this. When we talk about $50 million just from Truckee fire protection, and we're talking about $2 million right now, it does seem insurmountable. But if we think about this from the perspective of getting something going that is regional, that enables other districts to contribute, that enables private funding to contribute, if we can use this for grant matching, we learned with the Measure T thing, when you have a steady stream of money that you can depend on, you can use that to apply for grants to get more money out of that, right? To turn that into some more substantial money. And again, when I look at that yellow district, I just think it's like the state of California is not coming to fix this, and the federal government's not coming to fix this. And when we think about what happened a few years ago in South Lake Tahoe, from my understanding from that was that because of fire breaks that they had built into there, it wasn't making all of the neighborhoods pristine, and it wasn't fixing all of the forests. It was a fire break that enabled them to actually fight that fire before it got to South Lake Tahoe. And so those little wins, I mean, that not just to characterize that as a little win, it's a significant win, but it was not based on, did we clean up everything all at once? It was based on having the funds to do specifically strategically important things. And I feel like, again, when I look at that yellow map, all those people are paying into this district, and they're not all using the services of this district. And more importantly, I think when we talk about the different community benefit things that we do, as we've seen from public comment, we do have people who complain about different things for good and reasons, and it's their money. I don't think there's a lot of people in that yellow spot there that would be terribly objectionable to us doing this. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good opportunity for us to do good by everybody in this district, and to help facilitate projects that the fire districts within the district would not otherwise be able to do. So without getting too much into the weeds, I understand legally that we do have to have some oversight over what's going on. We can't just write a check. Personally, I would prefer to write a check and leave it in the hands of the fire chiefs, because I feel like they know how best to do it. But I would like us to support this, and I would like us to support this in the least intrusive way possible, so that there is flexibility on the part of the fire chiefs and the experts who actually know where this work needs to be done.
How much money do you get a year from Measure T?
About 3.6 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not very much.
179 it's not very much.
It's not very much.
Yeah.
And Measure T is only for Truckee Fire District, correct?
That's right. Measure
Right.
T is just for the Truckee Fire Protection District. It's $179 per parcel, generates about, like I say, $3.5 million a year.
Okay.
And we try to put that into several different categories of
Right.
projects.
So, I had a wildfire in my backyard last summer in June, and Dylan Sheedy was on the scene right away, and I said, we've been wanting Measure T to clear out this 100-acre wood. You know what I'm talking about. And he said, we can't do that because it's the state of California. And I'm wondering how many plots do you have sprinkled around this whole region that can't be, that Measure T can't come in and improve? Is that common, or is it just?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So we're going through this planning process, community wildfire protection plan, and part of that is getting to know all the landowners. Who are the landowners? And it's not that we can't do the work, it's just how do we go about it? And it is about getting rights to enter and environmental clearances, and developing a treatment prescription.
Right.
And so it's not that we can't do it, it's just how do we go about doing it. And in some cases, we need to influence others to do it.
Right.
So we would need to influence the state of California. As I understand, it's owned by the teachers or something.
Yeah, it's in the CTA.
And they maybe don't even know that they own it.
Yeah.
And so it's all those little planning processes that we have to go through, find the right people.
And what kind of resources do you have to do that? I mean, that seems really tedious and time.
It is very tedious, yeah, very tedious, and we're super lucky to have Dylan and Eric Hornvet, Dylan Sheedy, and so Measure T has allowed us to get into those conversations. That's one of the things that I'm very thankful for, where we couldn't even get into the room before Measure T, or barely into the room, and now we're able to have these conversations with CAL FIRE, the U.S. Forest Service, all the different land managers, better conversation with utility providers, power companies, Caltrans. We're having great conversations with Caltrans, and Measure T has just opened that door for us. So it's just sort of cracked open. We're just getting there. We're getting to the table, and then we're looking for resources to actually do the work.
Great.
If I can also ask, we have Sachet from the Community Foundation, the Truckee Tahoe Community Foundation, the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation. And I don't know if you want to add any perspective on the Forest Futures program that you all have developed and helped assist with the fire districts in a number of different capacities in the community as well.
Yeah, certainly. Good evening, everybody. I'm Sachet Kantu. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Community Foundation. I'm also joined by Phyllis McCon tonight, and just really wanted to recognize, one, the privilege of being thought partners in this work, but two, not only from the comments and the questions, but having been in this work for a number of years, just we really want to first and foremost recognize that this work is complex. So you may all have varying levels of familiarity with our Forest Futures initiative. And really where this intersects with the discussion tonight is really tying these efforts around wildfire mitigation directly into one of our impact strategies related to community protection. So Forest Futures was actually built on multiple years of listening, convening, learning, and collaborating. And what that has allowed us to do is just really provide a level of readiness and an ability to activate when it comes to different issues related to landscape management, wildfire risk, and particularly the topic that we're talking about tonight, whether that's home hardening, fuels reduction, and how to do it in an environment as complex when you have so many different stakeholders, whether that's private landowners, private philanthropy, public philanthropy, shared responsibility, or questions about how to get work done. And really, again, through this collaborative approach to building Forest Futures, while we did land first and foremost on community protection as being a high priority, we also have secondary aspects of the initiative that we focus on, which include building a forest economy. So we've alluded to that as well, having the workforce available to get the work done, the infrastructure, and then our third piece is really around accelerating market-based solutions. But again, coming back to just our work and building this strategy and this initiative, is that we've really had to continue to navigate a complex set of stakeholder interests. This is particularly true when it comes to our grant making. We've been successful in raising both private and public dollars to support this work. You may be familiar as well that we're currently administering a CAL FIRE block grant to private landowners through 2026, and just really recognize just the necessity of collaboration and a communication to be able to approach this work thoughtfully. I want to toss the mic quickly to Phyllis, if we can get her off mute, just to talk a little bit about our public funding and activation.
She's there, but she's muted.
We've been having technical difficulties all day, so I want to give it just a minute. Otherwise, we'll keep it brief and just kind of open the door for any questions. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep us rolling, but recognizing whether it's been through our prior engagement on agency partnership, also working with multiple public entities around community organizations activated in disaster or emergency response fund activity, thinking not only about the resiliency work, but the response work related to these events, even particularly around inclement weather or wildfire. And just last but not least, I would just share that I think as we've gone through this process of building out the initiative, just really recognizing the necessity of having controls in place, both from an operations, a process perspective, governance, and financial, in order for us to be able to manage projects of really varying size, scale, and complexity. So again, I'll just close with what I opened and just we are here to be a thought partner and resource to y'all as you engage in this important work.
Thank you. We have somebody from CAL FIRE here, Thomas Smith. I'm especially interested in your thoughts, not in Truckee Fire and not in Measure T, that are at the lake. I live in Lahontan, and I think the fire's coming from that direction. But I'm curious what your thoughts are of the opportunities and challenges in this district to the south and southwest.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. My name's Thomas Smith. I'm a field battalion chief here in the Nevada Yuba Placer Unit, and specifically here in the greater North Tahoe Truckee area. And to speak to a little bit of that and to echo what Chief McKechnie was saying is similar to the Truckee Fire Protection CWPP, the other three fire protection districts have also built their own. And then as a signatory to every CWPP, CAL FIRE also signs on and supports those. So any fuels reduction, not only in the greater area, in the town of Truckee, but in the SRA, the state responsibility area of your airport district, we would be in support of not only in a ecological, environmental, but also a fiscally responsible manner. And the metrics are all there in the CWPPs and then in collaboration with possibly just Chief McKechnie through his JPA authorities or through all the chiefs along with CAL FIRE's input. Our guiding principle is also the unit burn plan that encompasses all 3 counties of our unit, Nevada, Yuba, and Placer County. But within that, it's broken out into the battalions, and this battalion, Battalion 15, the greater North Tahoe Truckee area, has those priority projects and areas that are usually echoed between the fire districts, the CWPPs, the battalion burn ignition plan, and the unit burn plan. So with that, I think collaboratively and collectively, projects could be identified in a common theme and support by all the chiefs. And it is. You can see the historical burn patterns, the fires. There is a lot of ground that also has no fire history, that is also very heavy in vegetation, and ultimately the entire landscape needs to be managed in a responsible way, introducing fire, whether it's mechanically introduced to mimic fire and then slowly bringing prescribed fire back in, or heaven forbid if it is a wildland fire, and then the recovery effort afterwards. But preparing for that, land managing, being responsible with that. So I think it's a great opportunity that you guys have, and the fact that we were invited to come here and support it, we would support any and all fuels reduction funding.
Is a prescribed burn in our future? We haven't done much of that.
Yes, we've been regularly burning all through last fall into the winter. With the snow coming, we slowed down a little bit with that, but not only on the federal land, and I think a lot of us saw that October, November to the north. Some very good, productive prescribed fire by the U.S. Forest Service. This fall, we were able to do approximately 10 acres and 600 piles in the North Star Fire Protection District. We did a little over 40 acres in the North Tahoe Fire Protection District in the Carnelian Bay area, along with CTC, California Tahoe Conservancy, doing another 40 acres of prescribed fire in the Dollar Hill area, along with state parks, doing, in conjunction with us and some cooperators, doing 60 acres of broadcast burning. And in the Lake Tahoe Basin, which is a lot of your southern part of your district, doing prescribed fire through the fall and into the winter. A lot of it slowing down once that last big storm in January came through. And in springtime, we are looking at some spring burns, but more the burn window up here tends to be better in the fall. Any other questions I can answer?
Can you and maybe Chief McKechnie speak to how, or if you work with the Forest Futures, is there collaboration there, or what's your relationship?
Well, we've sat in meetings with the Truckee Tahoe Community Foundation, both Chief McKechnie and myself, along with Rob Entire, and the collaboration continues to grow, especially as they develop their CWPP. A lot of people are coming in as stakeholders or philanthropists or that capacity. So it continues to grow. And I'll let Chief McKechnie add on.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, I don't know all the details, but Forest Futures went for a block grant from CAL FIRE back into this community. It was somewhat facilitated by our wildfire prevention manager, Eric Hornfett. And so that they're a great agency for sort of facilitating that, going out after grants, and then bringing that money to the community, and then granting it back out. And yeah, of course, we collaborate on project prioritization and all their needs.
If I can, I'd like to thank you both. In my presentation, there's a last page there that has some diagrams talking about process. And maybe I just make a couple comments about that just down on that diagram, next page. There we go. So I know the board of directors has a separate conversation set up for April and a workshop talking about the prioritization of both infrastructure spending here in the airport first, and then secondarily, what is the best way to address our tax revenue engagement with the community. So I know those are pending conversations, and I'm not trying to preempt those. I know those are going to happen, and we'll get guidance from the board on those. What I was hoping today to get guidance from the board on is if we focus on just this year's identification of that $2 million around wildfire mitigation, and we maybe think about it in a two-pronged approach. The first prong being perhaps a 1 year time frame, and I say 1 year, but it's a loose 1 year because a lot of the projects that the different fire district and CAL FIRE have in place, they may get funding next year, but just to the nature of what the project is, it may not actually happen for a whole year. And it's just the time, the flash to bang from the way projects unfold and forest management and wildfire prevention. But if we were to focus for this year on identifying, in that top banner there, we talked about establishing priorities. If we think about the second one, and that's fuel reduction, and that is the fuel reduction piece in the forest is what the community wildfire prevention plans or protection plans, let me get the P's wrong there. Protection plans. Identify, so those are documents that are in place now, they've been vetted through a public process, through CAL FIRE. It's a fairly robust set of projects that are already established. And if we focus on just what's been established and approved right now as our focus for this year, that is a process that that we could work with, when I say we, staff, myself, can work with the fire district's JPA, with CAL FIRE to identify, have them across those different priorities identify what the top priorities are and bring those back to the board of directors for review. What is the money around those? What is the benefit for the district? What the timing is for your review and approval or rejection, consideration, might be a path forward for this year over the next 2 months, I would say. Long term, the second prong would be more along the lines, I would suggest, of what's laid out here as a process that is more collaborative across what the Forest Futures and Community Foundation is. And if you go down on this chart a little bit lower, it would still involve a vetting group of people, which I see as our fire professionals and others that are related to that knowledge base and decision making, the experts around that. It's the folks at the Watershed Council. It's our federal folks around Tahoe National Forest. Coming together to be a vetting group body, but really looking at those same projects across as jurisdictional boundaries here, mostly on the state side, but also how they interact with the federal ones and how we can maximize the money that's being deployed, and also how we can maximize with the community foundation's help or other entities' help, leveraging and trying to get other grants or other money from from the state level, and using those resources that folks at the Community Foundation or even Sierra Business Council, a variety of different entities around here that are very well versed in leveraging and applying for grants and seeking other monies beyond what CAL FIRE and the fire district are doing now, might be a long-term prong for the future that may go beyond just 1 year approach to this and be able to bring resources at a much greater level for this community and have this collaborative conversation type approach to these multi-jurisdictional boundaries that we have and the very stakeholders that we have. as a separate tact or conversation that is more long-term. So I'll leave it there, and happy to take questions on this about the board's questions or guidance and direction, and certainly public comments as well.
Yeah. I think this yellow map, I mean, the part down here that hasn't burned is, yeah, this would be the death of all of us. I also think the vast majority of the land in the district is not within a fire district per se. It is CAL FIRE or federal, state or federal. So that needs to be a bigger part of the conversation than the 4 or 5 districts. It needs to be, what are we going to do about this giant yellow area with no, I mean, once you get to the, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, but the local fire districts, when you get to the edge of the neighborhoods, that's the end of it, right? Then it's CAL FIRE beyond that, right?
Yeah, that's true. It's CAL FIRE, U.S. Forest Service.
Right.
We do work with them, and they are working on a lot of projects. The U.S. Forest Service or Tahoe National, the TNF and the Truckee Ranger, they have a huge project that they're looking at on the middle Truckee River watershed. They've done quite a few great projects in the area. They just did a roadside veg on all their forest roads in the Boca Stampede Prosser area. And then they did the project over here. What is this one?
Big Jack and then the 5 Creeks are the 2.
Yeah, Big Jack, and then they're working on 5 Creeks, which is on the west side of the Highway 89 corridor between Truckee and Tahoe City, Truckee and Olympic Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's work being done.
Yeah, I know. I was just trying to make a point that when you get to the end of the road, it's CAL FIRE, the feds, you know. So we need more of that at the table, in my opinion, than just the fire chiefs. And this is, you know, because I grew up here, because I was on the fire board for 8 years. That's my perspective on that. But the other thing I wanted to say, and I probably should have said it first, is we can only do this and only afford this after we take care of the airport. That's my position on it. Airport first. That's what we were elected to do.
I support this concept, and I voted for the budget in December of 2023. And then we got a revision of the obligations and potential expenditures and the effect on airport revenues in January. And my support for this program is going to be heavily discussed on our meeting. We have a 4-hour meeting on the 23rd of April to talk about priorities. And it's critical that we get through that to address that. You know, we've always thought we had all the money in the world, and looking at the fund balances, we got about $14 million in the bank. If those numbers are accurate, it's a little under 14. 15? 10. Well, I read the report wrong then. It's still a lot of money. But also, if I look at the projections, we run out of that money depending on what our priorities are. So for me to really move forward on this, I have to get through and understand and hear from the board and on our April 23rd workshop from 1 to 5 p.m. Just in case anybody wants to show up for that. I plan to, but it's a critical meeting, which basically is looking forward to where we're going. And I think Teresa Odette is absolutely right. That big green or a yellow area, and I've hiked through there, and I've hiked through Desolation and things like this, and there's a lot of fuel up there. A lot. And even between Martis Camp and 89, there's a lot of fuel up there. Some people have done some good up there, but it's just an enormous amount of projects to do. I don't think I have a position, but I'm telling you what I'm concerned about.
To get the temperature of the board, I'm in favor of you continuing to put effort into developing something like this. Because, I remember the big fire, the Angora fire. It was really difficult to get permits to do the cleanup, and then it all burnt down, and the impact on the lake and that community was huge. And yet, if we just say, it's too big, we can't take it on. It's like climate change, it's too big. Greenhouse gas, it's too big, so let's just not think about it. If we can come up with $2 million, if other people, foundations, private entities can come in with money, there's no one silver bullet. There's a lot of little pieces, and we have this opportunity to start a process. I had 2 brother-in-laws who lost everything in the campfire. That came up really fast. Hopefully it doesn't happen here, but the more wooey areas we can address, the better chance we have to protect. And so I'm very much in favor at this temperature is saying keep working towards this, come up with the plan. If there's shovel-ready projects, let's start chipping away at them this summer. Because after a big fire, there's all kinds of money to clean things up. But we should be talking to CAL FIRE, talking to Forest Service, pushing the buttons. If those entities, if we're reaching out to our representatives and our senators and saying, we're coming up with local money to do this, you need to match it. You need to come forward with more money. So I'm supportive. That's my temperature.
I guess I'll just wrap up. To me, one of the, other than I'm a pilot and I fly out of this airport, and as an airport, I love this airport. To me, one of the great things about this airport is that when this airport district does stuff, people in the region pay attention. We set trends, we get things started. We have a history of that. Part of that is because of resources, and part of that, I think, is because we have a climate of innovation. It's in our strategic plan that we want to do things like this. So I feel like when we're looking at, again, the big yellow area and the $2 million and feeling like it's a drop in the bucket, it might be one of the first drops in the bucket. But then again, when we think about, like the fire break at South Tahoe, it wasn't about keeping that entire forest clean. It wasn't about keeping all of South Tahoe neighborhoods clean. It was about having that break that enabled them to stop what would have been catastrophic for South Tahoe. And I feel like through under the direction of the expertise that we've got in our fire districts around the area, including CAL FIRE, that I believe that they could prioritize these things, and that we could over several years actually make a dent in this. And that if at the same time, from a political perspective, we're able to get others to join into this, I think we start to solve that problem that we're not seeing the state of California and the federal government solving for us.
I love the idea of putting money into the community that benefits the entire community and not just little sections of it. And I totally agree with Mary. I would love to see, money that's going to projects that are going to happen soon, because time is of the essence. I'm a little concerned right now that Forest Futures doesn't seem to be staffed. And while I understand the advantage of having money that can be leveraged into more grant money. I think the fire chiefs are the ones who know what needs to be done. So I'm muddy about how this is all going to come together, what entities are involved, except I know that there are people on the ground doing that work and need to get funded for that. So I'm in favor of moving forward. We'll see what you bring to us in April.
Public comment?
All right, thank you. Nick Pappas. I'm a Truckee resident, Airport District voter, taxpayer. I want to say first, I really appreciate this being brought forward by the board and the general manager and the staff. This area to the west of Truckee and Tahoe City is an existential crisis for our community, and it is an existential crisis for every single member of the electorate that you all represent. If Caldor wasn't a wake-up call, and Caldor, in contrast, we don't have the big granite slabs. We don't have recent fires. What we have is a tremendous amount of western-facing risk to our community. And in addition to the obvious risks on the surface, safety, air quality, we've got an epidemic of homeowners insurance cancellations. So I guess I'll just share from a kind of prioritization perspective, a little bit of a preview of, I think, some of the comments you may hear in April from the community. I was quite shocked about the level of public support this airport got when I moved here and learned about the airport district. $8 million is a tremendous amount of taxpayer support for a, quote, community asset that serves a tremendously small share of the community and, frankly, subsidizes that tremendously small number of people to do activities that are hugely damaging to the climate. And so when I heard this item come forward, I thought, how poetic could it be for us to reallocate funding from one of the most climate damaging activities, flying your dog in on a private jet or circling around the lake a few times because you think it's fun, to reallocate it to climate adaptation that is critically, existentially needed for our community. So maybe it's just that I'm surrounded by other peasants, but when I talk about the airport, folks are really surprised that we spend $8 million of our really scarce community resources to subsidize things like debt service on hangars that host private jets. And when I talk about this, and I've talked about this with everybody I know since hearing about it, folks are just ecstatic, just beyond excited, beyond thrilled to think about the prospect of reallocating some of that money, which currently is subsidizing the people who absolutely need it the least, to do activities that hurt all of us, to reallocate it to a community initiative that is absolutely existentially critical. I could not be more supportive. I really hope the board doesn't defer action on this, doesn't delay action on this. I think some of the discussion that's come up today about thinking about a cohesive plan, thinking about what $2 million could do every year for the next 10 years. You know, we heard about the need, $50 million. That's a big need. $2 million a year is a big chunk of that need. $2 million a year for 10 years, that's 40%. You know, this is an existential challenge that's going to be with Truckee and other mountain towns for a long time. But for us to be able to earmark $2 million a year, start making that dent, bring a strategic plan together, and maybe that's a small part of the funding from this year, is to have some grants in there for the fire chiefs and other community stakeholders to say, what would 10 years of $2 million a year look like to make a dent on this just absolute crisis on the horizon? You know, hearing from community members who've had their fire insurance canceled, their homeowners insurance canceled, hearing from community members who've had families impacted by Caldor, by camp. This is not something for us to sleep on, and I just want to share as part of the peasantry, as part of the tax base, as part of the flyover community, we're not getting a lot for that $8 million. I know we heard that the economy only exists because of the airport as part of the economy. I find that a little offensive. The economy is not going to exist if Truckee and North Tahoe burn down. So really appreciate that. I just really appreciate the board hearing. There is a very, very concerned silent majority in our community who is not getting benefits, who is deeply concerned about this issue, and for you all to have this opportunity is tremendous. So Godspeed, thank you. Look forward to the continued conversation.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Good evening, directors. My name is Michael Cohen. I'm also a Truckee resident, homeowner, taxpayer. I'm here to also express my strong support for the board approving these funds. We know that wildfire mitigation is critically important. We've got our local fire chief and a CAL FIRE battalion chief here telling us that this is important. In my view, that's a pretty good sign that the board is moving in the right direction. But more fundamentally, this district collects nearly $200 in annual tax revenue from me alone. I think that's more than I even pay to Measure T funds. And I don't see the benefits of that investment if it's spent on the airfield. As a lowly peasant, I don't fly anywhere on a private plane. I'm not a pilot. And I believe the board has an obligation to use its exceedingly generous budget to support the community that so amply contributes to it, including the proposed funding that's under consideration here. It's on the wall, right? I mean, this board is committed to increasing community safety and providing sustained benefit to the entire Truckee Tahoe region. That's what you were elected to do. I'd love to see that happen in the form of the funds under consideration today. And I'd especially like to see it happen quickly and in a way that gives maximum discretion to our local fire agencies and experts, and in a way that commits this board to doing it on the long term. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I'd like to comment that I don't think you non-flyer people are peasants. You're constituents.
Yeah, I'm a non-flyer too.
I'm a non-flyer.
I'm a flyer and a peasant.
But thank you for your comment. Any other public comment? Just step up.
Yeah, hi. My name's Ann Penfield, and I live right up the hill from here. And when we had that plane crash that was devastating, you know, I saw the flames from my deck bursting when we had that terrible plane crash, which lost some lives, and it's very sad. But it was a wake-up call in our whole neighborhood. I ran to everybody's house and said, hey, you know, get ready to evacuate. This could come right up our hill, be here in 2 minutes or whatever. And so when you kind of say, well, the fire, you know, the airport doesn't have anything to do with the community's fire problem, it could be the cause of a huge fire. So I'm appreciative of you for looking at doing this $2 million grant to help us do some things. And I think it shows good faith on the airport that you realize that you are a liability as well for the whole community, as well as an asset. And our neighborhood, you know, the year after that, or 2 years, we became FireWise, and we're trying to get money to do things in our neighborhood. And that'd be one option for the airport, is to grant some money to support some of the FireWise communities to do some projects they'd like to do. Because, you know, when it's $1,000 to have one tree dropped, you can't do much. So I want you to think about that as an option for some of the money. And maybe next year you can do $4 million, because $2 million is a drop in the bucket, right? So just think about those things, and thank you.
It's a start. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that airplane crash was devastating to the neighborhood, and I knew 3 of the people on the plane.
Oh, yeah.
Tragic. Tal.
Hey.
Which one? Hey, my name's Tal Fletcher. I live in a noise-sensitive house about a mile away, and you guys have seen me before. Most of these folks have, and nice to see new faces in the room. I think I've been at almost every board meeting in the last 2 years, and it's great to see people here. I wasn't planning to speak tonight, but have a few things on my mind, so I thought I'd get up. First, glad to see the last time the word peasant was used. It brought some levity to the room and some humor. But let's not do class warfare. All right, there's a lot of people that fly airplanes, and they're not all billionaires. I'm one of them, and I realize this isn't a forum for me to turn around and talk to members of the audience. So I'll continue to address the board. But my offer to take anyone flying in my small 50-year-old airplane anytime exists to anyone who wants to see what's flying in a small plane is about. I use it a little bit for fun, a little bit for transportation. I take my family, especially my daughter, to see her grandparents. That's a 10-hour drive away. It's 3 hours on the plane. We can do that in a weekend with a small plane, and we try to be really, really sensitive to the noise issues and the pollution when we do that. So I know we're talking about fire and fire mitigation. As a member of the public, I just want to express support and appreciation that the board's considering it. To the professionals in the room telling us about it, I think it's awesome. I don't know the details other than what I've heard tonight, but as a environmentalist, a small business owner, a taxpayer, a constituent, a noise-sensitive guy, an airplane owner, a hangar tenant, I wear a lot of hats when I get up at this microphone, but I want to really express my appreciation to everyone who's involved in this conversation. And one last thing, anyone who's paid attention to the politics of the airport board knows that David and I don't always agree or see eye to eye or support the same candidates, but I want to publicly say that what you said tonight in your comments about this issue are much appreciated. I thought they were well thought out, and I'm really, really encouraged to see what the board's doing with this. So thank you.
Thank you, Tal. Any other public comment? Okay. So let's move on.
That's great feedback from our fire professionals, our members of the community, and certainly from the board of directors who provides guidance that we take action on. I'll summarize at the end of the meeting like we normally do, but just a quick summary for those folks that aren't here. I'll plan on really taking two tacks on this. One is coming back with an immediate action plan with our fire professionals with existing projects that are in the approval process that are just needing funding, and a second longer term tack to present to the board, which is a longer term play. If we continue funding at a consistent level and we have other players involved in that, what that might look like as a process, and that may take a little longer. But the first tact, I think I could bring that back here and have that ready for the board. If not the next board meeting, as soon as I possibly can, based on meeting with the fire professionals with recommendations. And again, I don't want to preempt the workshop conversation that Rick is alluding to about prioritization of use of funds. So I'm definitely sensitive to the timing of those two conversations, one day after the other, and the preparation of materials associated with that isn't ideal, but I'll still do my best to bring forward some immediate action plans that meet, I believe, the urgency of what I'm hearing and the opportunity here as well.
Thank you. Shall we move on the agenda here? We've got board committee assignments and ad hoc committee reports. First is workforce housing. Lauren, you have something?
Yeah, we had our board meeting last week where it's on.
We can't hear you. And it isn't Kelly.
Our board reviewed multiple member agency-owned sites that are being explored for future workforce development. The development consultant, Ms. Shellen Rodriguez, recommended our board select our top 2 sites so further due diligence and analysis can be done on them. The first site the board chose was 2 parcels adjacent to Alder Creek Middle School, which is owned by the Truckee Tahoe Unified School District, and the Hobart Mills site up 89, which is owned by the Forest Service, and Nevada County is trying to lease that land to help further develop housing for the Forest Service hotshots as well as community housing for the region. We also reviewed the 2022-2023 audit and received a presentation by James Marta. We accepted that audit and there were no notes to that audit, which we were really pleased with. We will be holding a workshop in May where we will do a strategic plan check-in as well as some funding scenarios regarding our housing fund concept. And that's about it.
The next item is a board workshop. Do you have any other comments on that other than we're going to have one?
We did find a date scheduled for both all board members for that 4-hour block. Sorry. We can skip back? Okay.
There's not a lot to report. Restore, revive, reimagine is the themes of the River Revitalization Steering Committee. They made a presentation to the town of Truckee last night. I didn't have the feedback from them. It was just an update to the town council. And 2 members of the community that are actually residents in the river corridor will be joining. And the town council will select those members. There are 10 volunteers.
I don't have anything additional than what's in the report, unless Kat had something. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, act attendance, next meeting's in April.
It is. We're going to start talking in more detail about hangar inspections as part of our ongoing hangar revitalization program. We have been communicating with all the tenants about expectations of standards, and we're going to walk through a discussion in more detail, both live and on Zoom, for the next meeting, the next 2 meetings, talking more specifics and answering questions we have from the hangar community about standards that we expect from all the hangar tenants. So if there's any volunteers, David Diamond is ineligible, due to conflict of being a hangar tenant and on the board.
I'll be in Boston.
Okay.
Okay, great.
You guys did a great job last time. I appreciate the long sort of the rollout that you're giving a lot of time to this, and I think that's important.
Yeah, we don't, as I think Jeff has summarized a few times, I mean, the discussion literally started over a year ago now. And so I feel like we've been consistently communicating not just to the board, but to our hangar tenants and the aviation community at large that we're moving into and through a process of both identifying problems with the hangars, maintaining the hangars, and maintaining standards within the hangars. And so this is a part of an ongoing conversation. And thank you for the comment, Director Rolfe. We'll continue to endeavor to reach out to the community members, particularly our hangar tenants, to help them understand what the priority are and what the standards are for hangar occupancy.
The Hangar Inspection Act meeting, April 10th.
Oh, no, I'm good.
That's fine. You can certainly do it on the fly. Yeah, okay, great. Thank you.
All right, any public comment on all those comments? GM report.
Thank you, Director Stevens. If we pull it up on the board real quick, I do like to take a minute every board meeting to remind, certainly not the board of directors, they're very aware of it, but to our members of the public at large in our airport district, that we do have a strategic plan here. It was approved by the board of directors this past year. It does have focus areas that you see here on this chart. And these are something that we actively look at on a regular basis here and are moving towards, just like the hangar revitalization program that we've been talking about. Jeff will talk a little bit more about it as our Director of Aviation. These are things that we have set in place as expectations of where we're going for some time now. And so as I walk through these each month, I highlight certain areas of these. But certainly the entire document is worthy to look at and to understand what the airport district's priorities are and what we're focusing on. Beyond that, the next part here is just a couple of highlights of focus areas. You go back to this, the main chart, the picture there, the diagram. We've been working on building reserve funds, segregating funds. The check marks indicate things that have been identified in the strategic plan. All these points are. And the check marks in green indicate things that I believe we have achieved success on. The ones with the black arrow are things that we are actively working on right now. The things that don't have any symbol next to them are things that we will be addressing as the year rolls on here. And these are the priority areas for this year in 2024 that come right out of our strategic plan at just kind of high level, topic level. The bottom right-hand corner in social there, you see, for example, a community benefit program policy update. We talked about holding a workshop in April on the 23rd to talk about both airport infrastructure, prioritization for funding, and also community benefit prioritization. That is what that highlighted arrow indicates. We have an active process that we're going to be talking about these things and receive guidance, directions, and decisions from the board of directors. I won't cover all those, but those just to give you an idea what those black arrows are indicating there. Item number 2 on here is the board workshop that we have planned here for April 23rd. These are the exact strategic plan items that direct by the board of directors areas that we want to focus on and identify and develop solutions for as part of why we're having the workshop, to bring more details from staff to the board, to have more robust conversations around these topics, and invite public comments in as well to help prioritization in these areas to achieve our strategic plan objectives. Item number 3, if we go down just a little further, this was approved today. This was just a little background for those that didn't see it in the consent item. We have, every year, we apply for Airport Improvement Program funding from the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. The board did approve moving forward with signing an agreement with our airport engineer, Brantley Engineering, to work with the FAA to try to get funding for our planned project right now, for our apron right out here in front of the building, which is our lowest pavement rating piece of pavement out here at the airport right now, where we do put our most heavy aircraft on a regular basis. So it is a priority for us to address that piece of pavement here as part of our long-term pavement management plan. And so this is just an effort to provide a little more description around that if you didn't read the consent items around that. As a result of this planned project for next year, on the apron in front of us here, or behind me where I'm sitting, where our aircraft pull up, embark passengers, deplane passengers, and where our primary areas for the air show on a regular basis. As a result of that planned work on the ramp here, we're not planning to hold the air show in 2025. We do plan on holding it this year, but we do plan on taking a break to do construction on the airfield here next year, and then talk about how what the future looks like for that air show, of course, with board of directors guidance.
Does the air show committee know this?
They're aware of that, yes. I just want to make sure other folks are aware of that, and we socialize that more as well. Item number 4, this is, I don't know, Josh, if you want to add any additional commentary to this update. The board did ask about this.
Yeah, and happy to answer any questions. And we had a conversation at the last meeting about this being on the ballot. So we there's a paragraph in the report, and then there's a fact sheet included in the packet.
Item number 5 here, there aren't questions on item number 4. We do planning, and our Director of Aviation will talk about this a little bit more. There'll be more information coming out on this. But we do hold quarterly meetings with our airport tenants, both whether they're aviator tenants or other business tenants here, to talk about impacts of planned operations here at the airfield, whether that be construction projects, maintenance projects, et cetera. We do plan on working that and incorporating that into our future ACT meetings as our regular tempo of operations and communications with our airport community members here on the airfield or airport property. And there are some planned projects for the upcoming months here, as outlined in those notes there. I think I have 2 more items on here, and let's see. No, I'll stop there unless there's questions on that report. I do have our Director of Finance and our Director of Aviation prepared to present reports as well.
There's no questions for Rob for the AVCOM report. Just a couple highlights. So what I'll do is I'll go through the AVCOM report, and then after that, a slide I'd like to show talking about hangar revitalization. And the AVCOM report, just a couple things to kind of mention. February was a little bit lighter, just in terms of total flight traffic. Going forward, you'll see the outcome report changing a little bit month to month, just to kind of update it a little bit more in line with the strategic plan, and specifically when it comes to operations, some different ways of looking at it as opposed to just kind of smooth lining it for an average, because days can look different. For this Fly Safe in the upper right, our first event in February, we had 88 attendees. That's a mix of both online and in person. I think it was about 38 in person and 50 some odd online. Last night we had our second Fly Safe seminar here in this room. Both of these are in conjunction with the FAA Wings program. Last night we had 63 people. We had 31 in the room and 32 online. And both those events, all the pilots that attended get Wings credit, knowledge credits. Fly Quiet program, I'm taking the noise, what used to be noise comments, and lumping that under Fly Quiet. Relatively lower month, it's February. It's one of the lower months of the year. We had 46 comments, 19 from one house. We had one aircraft fly the new shoulder hour procedure, and there were no noise complaints. So that I consider that a win. And then for the hangar wait list, we'll probably open that up here in the near future, and I think we're going to see some movement, partly from some of the hangar repairs, and we have a couple tenants that are very likely moving out in the next couple months. So I think we'll see some movement. You see a lot of the community outreach items there. So what I'd like to do now is, Lauren, if you can call up I think it was slide 6. Yep. Talking about the hangar revitalization. So we've been talking about this for a long time since I was hired here. It's in the strategic plan. We began discussing it at board meetings back in May. We've been doing outreach with hangar tenants. We've had a number of ACT meetings about this. Very similar to the Fly Safe and Fly Quiet, we have been incorporating feedback we've received to date, because there's lots of great ideas, and we incorporate them as they make sense if it's within the framework of the strategic plan and the FAA, what we're really trying to get after. Not only from the strategic plan, but also the FAA land use inspection. Strat plan was August. The FAA land use inspection was September. We already knew going into it there were probably some gaps, so we're closing those gaps. The way we're approaching this for the hangars is to identify safety and clear zones and trying to stay out of the business of what is aeronautical and non-aeronautical use without trying to hold court if you have 4 winter tires or 4 summer tires, whether it's aeronautical, non-aeronautical. So this is a depiction of your standard T hangar. Dimensionally, it's not exact, but it's pretty close. So where it says 3 foot, 2 foot, etc., it's a depiction of a Cirrus and a hangar, one of the larger hangars. So the A zone, it would be a 3 foot clear zone around the pedestrian door, the fire extinguisher, the momentary switch, and the electrical panel. And that is so we can, and under there it says why, but that is so we can do our fire code and maintenance inspections, and we have access without shelving, et cetera, being in the way. Zone Bravo is along the front door. It's depicted there in the light purple, 4 feet. Why? When we inspect the cables, what our maintenance team typically does is when the aircraft is out, or they'll contact the pilot, is they'll get a scissor lift when the aircraft's not in there because it's easier, it's safer, etc. When it's not, then they get out a ladder to maneuver the ladder around through the hangar, but per OSHA standards, for every 4 foot vertical, you need 12 inches at the base of the ladder from the vertical structure, just as you can imagine going up a ladder. So if you have a 12-foot hangar, it's 3 feet away from the wall for the base of the ladder. And that extra foot is so our maintenance personnel can get on the ladder and have 12 inches between the leading edge of the aircraft and the ladder. That's still not a lot of room. That's where the 4 foot zone is. The prop, the cowling of the aircraft, or the tug could be in that zone. All of this is waiverable. There are some aircraft that won't meet this dimension. We as a district leased the hangar as is. We will document that. So if there are cases where we can't make this work, that's okay, we'll document it. Zone Charlie, this is right out of FAA policies, the blue hatched area. An aircraft needs to be available, unimpeded movement. The reason why is for extenuating circumstances or a need where the airport staff has to tow the aircraft out for an unforeseen circumstance. There's some type of structural damage or snow. We have to do electrical work. There was unseen. The pilot's away. We have to be able to move the aircraft. So nothing can be anywhere impeding the movement of the aircraft. Zone D, which you see is the yellow hashed, it provides a 24-inch zone around all edges of the aircraft, again, for our maintenance personnel to be able to safely maneuver around the hangar with tools, with a ladder, without having concerns about hitting a navigation light, a flight surface. Some of them are wrapped in canvas, they're delicate, so it allows our team to maneuver around the hangar. Zone Echo, it's not really a zone, but it's kind of a hard and fast, is that shelving per California building code, which is a international building code. Most states have adopted it. It's 5'9". If you buy furniture and sometimes you get anchoring points on it, it's 5'9". I've been in probably 30 hangars in the past month. When you measure hangars, something you'd see that from Home Depot, IKEA, et cetera, they're all exactly 5'9". We can do waivers above that. We can look at anchoring. We can do different things, but as a going in position, 5'9" is a starting position for hangars. Some of the other pieces in there, hazmat storage needs to be in approved containers. I think those are the big ones. Once we comply with this, the white space literally depicted in the diagram, and the FAA has pretty wide boundaries as to what's aeronautical, what's non-aeronautical. As far as we're concerned, what you put in there, unless you're running a business, which is a clear red line you cannot do, or it's an egregious storage of household goods, mattresses, antique furniture, things that clearly should be in a downtown shelter. If it's a motorcycle, if it's a paddleboard, it's winter tires, etc., we don't really want to get into that. And when you go through the FAA policy in depth, there's some gray space and discretion. And even the FAA, when they were here for the land use inspection, said whatever you put in your policy is what you can hold everyone to. So that is our going in position, because I think of all the things we do with hangar inspection, this will be the most emotional for a lot of our tenants. Over this past weekend, I sent a long email out talking about this along with these slides. It's in the board report as well. Didn't receive a lot of feedback. I received feedback from 6 people. All 6 were very positive. To include some of the future considerations. We had even brought them up in front of the board, but things such as, right now, what is a non-aeronautical use of a hangar? So if you have your aircraft, it's registered because it's an experimental, you sign off on your own airworthiness in the annual, but it hasn't flown in 12 years. Per paper, per the standards we have, it meets it. We also have in our PMCDs, our minimum standards says that it's quite broad, but it has to be used for aeronautical purposes. I think that anyone that hasn't flown an aircraft in 12 years, that's clearly non-aeronautical use of the hangar. The other item that we're talking about, and again, this would be after we get through this wave of movement and enforcement of standards, but is also how often do you use the hangar? So we have some hangars where aircraft haven't been in the hangar for years. The aircraft comes here, drops off, or the folks get out, but they're not using the hangar. But they meet on paper, they meet all the requirements. So some things we're talking about, that you have to use the hangar once every 180 days, 14 nights annually, and if not, termination or grounds for potential removal, barring extenuating circumstances. If somebody has a supply chain issue, there's a medical issue, et cetera, we have no intent for things that come up, of course, but to try to really make sure that our hangars are used to the maximum use for true aeronautical purposes. So those are the future considerations. Very positive feedback on both of those. Of the 6 comments I got back, both all said, and they were active hangar tenants, not waitlist folks, saying, yes, you should be flying the aircraft or hit the road, and if you're not using it, you don't need it. So we'll carry that conversation forward. We will be socializing this over the next 3 to 6 months, but I would assume sometime late summer that we will bring forth some updates, partly from what we learned from this, and then also from some of those future considerations. We're also looking at some temporary rentals, a number of other things we can do to try to increase the usage of the hangars for the flying public. Any questions? All right, over to Kelly.
There's always time for public comment.
I also have a thing that I wanted to say.
Can I do the public first? I've got him vertical.
Yeah. This one to Kelly when I'm done? All right, I'm back. I kind of planned on making no public comment tonight, and here I am with two. And this one actually is a two-part, so maybe we'll even call it three. My name's Tal Fletcher, and I identified earlier I wear a lot of hats in and around this building and this airfield. First, the main reason I want to get up is just I went to the meeting last night. It was a public forum with 6 CFIs, instructors, and Jeff and DVQ kind of leading it. And I just want to say it was awesome. David was there, and as we just heard, about 60 pilots attended between Zoom and the room. And I'll put my local pilot hat on for this comment. It's so awesome to see what this airport is doing, what the board is supporting, and what the staff is implementing, and what it's doing for the community of pilots. And I just want to say thank you. I want to encourage pilots and non-pilots to attend these things. It's relatively new here, as far as I can tell, and it's just a great energy and a great bit of information. So thank you. Next comment is something I might regret. And I'm saying it publicly, and it's being recorded, so here we go. But I just had a conversation in the hallway with some really, really nice people. I kind of chased them out and apologized for chasing them, and also said I really want to have a conversation. What I'm saying now is to everyone in the room and everyone listening, but it's a call out to all of our local pilots, because what I just learned in the hallway is that the gentleman who spoke at the beginning of this meeting is coming across the community as representing pilots. And I'll say publicly and personally, he's the opposite of what I feel most pilots' mentality and sentimentality is around here. I totally disagree with virtually everything he said. I think he insinuated that people in this room are responsible for him making decisions when and where to fly his airplane. And what I just learned is that a lot of people are mistakenly thinking that this gentleman represents pilots at the Truckee Airport. So whether this comment is appropriate or not, I'm encouraging all pilots who are listening, all people who know pilots, come to these meetings, voice your position, get involved, be public, and show this community who the pilots really are. Because letting one guy do that on behalf of the rest of us, I think is a scary place to be. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
Got it? Okay.
David?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, because there was something that is in Jeff's report that we've talked about in the past, which was that we had a broadcast issue with ATIS because of our antenna, which was a safety issue for pilots coming in from the Bay Area. And thank you, Mike. They put a new antenna in there, and that, even though it was a small item in that report, it's a big thing for safety around the region. So I wanted to recognize that they've done that and thank them for that.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I guess I would just say thank you to getting us in alignment with FAA requirements on hangars. That's big. And it's been pushed for many years, and I'm really excited to see it happening.
It's the first time.
It is. It's been discussed for many, many years and has been punted. And I'm really excited that it's happening.
I think it's because our excellent management is doing a good job.
Good evening. Just want to give you a few highlights from February. We are at revenues year to date of 2.6 million, expenses of 2.0 for net income of 184,000. We're just over 200,000 ahead of last year, which is great. Some updates on our capital projects, which are toward the end of the staff report. We've received the 2 electric-powered GPU units. Very exciting. We are working on replacing some carpet for CareFlight and getting them a new generator. We took receipt of the Ford Lightning, the Ford F-150 electric vehicle, and now we are actually in the process of getting another one tomorrow to replace an older gas Ranger. So we're trading that one in for the electric vehicle. That should be here tomorrow. And then starting to move forward on the fuel farm, the fuel pump skid project. So forging ahead on that front. So trying to work towards all the things that we had in the budget. And exciting for us in finance, we've had a couple of phone calls so far looking at some new software. So I'm hoping in the next 2 weeks we're going to have a demo. Keep looking around to see what's out there, but moving forward on that project and moving forward on the audit. As far as fuel sales go, we're looking, I'm hoping, close to 30,000 gallons for March, which is getting us closer to kind of, if you throw out 2021 kind of wacky times, closer to where we normally would be for this time of year, which is nice to see. And also at 100% SAF, which is even better. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, I have a question on the balance sheet.
Yes, sir.
Current assets, cash and cash equivalents as of 12/29/24, 14,830,000. You were saying only 10?
I thought you were talking about 1231. That's on the other column.
Well, I understand 1231, but I'm looking at 1229.
Yep,
229.
229. Correct.
And that's because we got property tax, I assume.
January.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Looking forward to meeting with you guys next month at the workshop.
From the board? Public comment?
Thank you.
Future agenda priorities and meeting management.
We have a rolling calendar that's included in the board materials. It looks accurate for this next month, including our workshops. We will be adding on hopefully feedback in April board meeting on the wildfire mitigation topic. That's not currently on there, but based on today's conversation, we'll add that on the agenda. And I'll work with the board president to refine that as we get closer to that date.
Staff and board member conference attendance reports. Any?
I'm planning to attend a conference next week in Fort Worth for the National Renewable Energy Laboratory on sustainable aviation fuel. And that's a 3-day conference next week. Represent the airport here.
So, meeting review and directions of staff? Or?
The primary review, I believe I summarized earlier. I'm happy to revisit that on the wildfire mitigation piece, but I'll make every endeavor to bring back to the board of directors really a two-pronged approach to wildfire mitigation, short-term, long-term, for consideration, along with the conversation in the workshop that we have planned for prioritization of use of community benefit funds. Secondarily, we had a conversation, provided guidance to us on the board of directors reimbursement for medical or stipend for meetings. Josh, I don't know if you want to cover that.
Sure, and I think the direction we received was that we would move forward with enrolling in PEMCA as well as updating the stipend, provided that updates would not be provided to directors who receive insurance. And we'll provide both of those as formal action items likely at the April board meeting.
Thank you. Any public comment? Board member announcements, David.
Yeah, so the five of us know and internally know that for what seems like the better part of the last decade, we've been working on an evaluation process for the general manager's position. We've completed that, and the question that I've got for the board here is we could start our evaluation any date you want. The 360 aspect of it was launched on Monday, so that has already been sent out. So we just need to choose a date. Ideally, we want to have this ready for the April meeting. So anytime you all want to start this, we can start this.
So if we just go onto your Google Doc and do the evaluation, it will show up?
Yes, it will. Each director has their own document, and when you answer the questions on there, it automatically feeds into a master spreadsheet that Josh will have access to. So he will distribute those links to the individual directors.
Yeah, and those links can be distributed as soon as tomorrow to directors.
Okay. So we can get on it.
Yep.
And then the idea would be that we have one more executive session and basically review that and do the review and come up with the annual bonus compensation for our general manager and get it approved in public hearing in April. So we want to make sure that's on the agenda. Otherwise, it'll be May. We want to get this done, and the delay has a lot to do with us. And we went through a process, and we're going to get it over with now and get it done.
So staff reports are coming back at what time? When will we see those?
We've asked staff that are interested in participating in the 360 to provide their feedback by April 5th, so next Friday, and that can be forwarded to the board as soon as it's received.
Okay.
Are we going to wait until we receive that to do our review?
I'm not. It has no effect on me.
Okay, I'm leaving town, so I'm going to get it done before I leave town.
So you can send those links tomorrow. Thanks, Josh. And thanks, Kat, for working with me on this.
All right. Everybody sees the upcoming meetings, the 23rd, the 24th, May 22nd, June 26th. Any other public comment? We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.